Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Wednesday, May 12th. So, some pretty nasty price action for the day. Let's go over the price action for the indices. Before we do that, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. Not giving out any advice or recommendations. This is for education purposes only. If the screen is blurry to you, it's because YouTube has not rendered the high def version yet. Just give it a second. So let's go through these nasty numbers first. SPY finished down 2% for the day. Q's down 2.6% for the day. Dow finished down 2% for the day. IWM down 3% for the day. And a whopping move for the VIX today, up 26%. The VIX climbed all the way up to 28%. So we'll talk about a couple levels to watch here. We'll talk about the price action. We'll start to get into the sectors, but it feels like some of the best performing groups of the market as of late got hit today. So sometimes that is kind of the evolution of a little bit of a sell-off, right? Some areas, of course, are the culprits of the move down, and then it kind of spreads, right? So where we kind of left off yesterday's video is we talked about how we had to get through. I was wondering basically if yesterday was just a one-day bounce in growth, right? And I mentioned that we needed to see some follow-through activity, especially from the growth side, and we really just didn't see that. And then you began to kind of see, the area that's been holding up the market, the value, kind of get beaten up too, right? There wasn't any rotation, from value back into growth. There was rotation just basically out of the market for now. So sometimes that's what you get, and sometimes you get a little bit of a deeper dip than usual, and that's kind of what we have on our hands right now. Let's talk about those levels where we kind of left off yesterday. All right, so let's do this backwards. Let's do the short-term chart first, right? So when we left yesterday, one of the things that I talked about was that we were stalling into the bottom of value, and we were kind of left the day right there. We just didn't have that follow-through to kind of turn the corner. So the MarketWebs, the value area is doing a great job telling us where we needed to get above, and we didn't. Remember, if you're new to this and you're not familiar with looking at value areas or virgin point of controls, the value area is based on last week's price action, volume at price, I should say, right? And that will really give us some good support and resistance levels. And then you could see that was a perfect resistance level yesterday. So that failed, and you basically had a waterfall kind of feel down for the day, and on negative breath. One of the things too, if you want to see market breadth for the day, it just deteriorated, right? So you could see this is our breadth indicator, and it just got worse through the session. So there were some levels that were taken out. If you go back to this 1 hour chart, notice that once we get below the range, the price action will seek out where there's high levels of volume. High areas of volume that have not been revisited, right? So here's one right in here, right? So you could see how this big peak in volume, this is the point of control for that period. Notice how the price action did not go through this value area at all. So it left behind a virgin point of control. The market remembers these things. So this got taken out. Now, we did not see a reversion back like we did in here, right? So this is a little bit of a work in progress. So this level here is 40.70. That's a level that we want to see price action retake, right? So 40.70 is one level to watch for tomorrow. Also, if you see that we got down to the 50-day moving average, right? That's a logical place for us to bounce. Do I see any bounce so far? No, I don't. So we're going to have to wait for that tomorrow. So what do you do when you see this type of price action, or what do I do when I see this price action and I don't really see any confirmation that things are turning? I kind of get out of some positions. That's basically what I did today. I'll go over that in just a second. Q's, similar. Sorry, that's wrong. Not a similar picture, but we did take out a virgin point of control here. This was the highest volume from this period. right, on the daily chart. So that level has been taken out. So again, does it look like we bounced here? No, it's too early to see that. Obviously big volume. We always get big volume on the down days, small volume on the up days in the indices. If you're not familiar with that, take a look at that. I always get questions about that. People want to see big volume on the up days. That never really occurs in the indices. All right, so that's just to kind of wrap today up too. IWM was kind of the weakest intraday. S&P and the Qs were kind of holding in there, holding the lows, and I started to see IWM really start to go down. Before the S&P and before the Qs took out their lows. So that's kind of where we are, and finishing on the lows, no kind of confirmation that the selling is done yet, even though some things that were taken out to the downside. So for now, I kind of sit in a pretty defensive position. A couple things that I started, like SE, I forced a couple targets in that thing yesterday. I held 10% of the position into today. That was gone right away. And a couple other things that I was holding too, for looking for like a 2-day bounce. Hubs, right? I did took 2 targets in that, so took off the residual position in that. Through my stop, being super disciplined here kind of just lets me fight for another day, right? Some of these things, like I put on applied materials, unfortunately, I did not get a target or anything in that yesterday. So that one had to come off because it was through its stop, and this thing closed at around like 114. Nasty action in the semiconductors again, and then anything else that I had a stop price on. Some things a little bit even before the stop price. I didn't like the price action in the industrials. It just felt like everything was getting taken to the woodshed today. So I just cut some positions. The only thing that I really left on, I kept a little bit of some SPY calls on for June. Just in case we do rebound a little bit, and I have a defined, in this option, it's defined risk, obviously, but everything else I tried for the day, I just took off, right? Don't want to be a hero in this market. XBI I thought was showing some signs of life, which was a little bit tricky because I'm like, hey, maybe things kind of turn around. It's very rare to see biotech up when the market is selling off. So, but sometimes you still have to respect price action, right? So we did have some resistance at 127. What turned me on to this was the move into value for the day. But notice how this got rejected, right at the end of the day. So there's no point in me keeping that trade on. So that's it today, guys. Quick video, and we just have to kind of see, when we get these dips in the market, right? Everybody always says that they want a dip to buy. I can't. If only the market would dip, I would buy, add some more risk. I'll tell you, whenever we get these dips in the market, they're never easy, right? There's always a reason for the dip. Inflation, a move in interest rates, right? So this trade that we put on last week, right, which was short TLT, right? This worked pretty well. We talked about this. We lined this up pretty well last Friday. We talked about how this looked like a failure to go higher. And take a look at this thing, right? Big move down. So I got long TBT, which is the inverse, the opposite of TLT leveraged, right? So that trade actually worked quite well. Right. Notice we took a VPOC out here, so I made sure to take some profits in that. Right. Here's our TBT trade. All right. So nice to have something on in case interest rates, which I thought were a real risk, that they would eventually go down lower. So that trade worked. And then for now, I just sit really in a defensive position. I don't have very many trades on. Now you just kind of watch and see if buyers come in. And then, try to check some of the boxes that I kind of look at, in terms of I want to see breadth improve. I want to see the VIX settle down. Once we start to get up to like the upper 20s, it's not something to really mess around with, which is where we are now in the VIX. And this is the highest the VIX has been since the beginning of March. Right. Also, if you look at the VVIX, which is the volatility of the VIX itself, notice this is all the way back to January. This took out this. Okay, so all that, a lot of this, what this means for me is to just kind of step back away from the market a little bit and let it do what it wants to do, because at the end of the day, maybe not today, but maybe in the next couple of days, this will act as a good buying opportunity. But we don't know where the selling pressure is going to stop. Hopefully, it stops at that 1 hour virgin point of control that I mentioned. But if not, and also that the 50-day moving average in the SPY. If not, we just kind of have to continue to sit on our hands and wait for buyers to kind of come into this market. Right? Tomorrow we have the PPI report, which is another gauge of inflation. I'll tell you what, I don't really understand these expectations, why they were so low coming in today. I think everybody knows that there's inflation showing up places. Whether it's transitory or not, that's a whole nother argument. But why was this so low coming into today? It's really odd, right? I talked about this last week too. I didn't understand last week that when you looked at things like where is this? The ISM number. They were looking for a 64. So I don't know why the expectations are so out of whack, where they were looking for such a huge expansion, right? Anything above 50 is expansionary for the ISM. They were looking for a 64 last week, which is a really tough number to beat. Today they were only looking for a 0.2% in inflation, when we know, who doesn't know that there's inflation right now, right? So it's startling to see that the expectations just didn't match, and because that's where you kind of get a reaction, right? When the number is different than what is expected. All right, guys. So that's it. I think preservation of capital right now until I see some confirmation that things are different, and we live to fight another day and try not to give back too much of this year's gains. And I know this has been tough. Even though the S&P, we're only down about 4 or 5% from the highs. The S&P is still up 11% for the year. Obviously, there's been a lot of traders that have not been in a lot of S&P names. They've been more in high momentum stuff. But, it's kind of crazy how this market has been this year, still up 11% for the year. So, keep these things in perspective. All right, guys, have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.